Welcome to Frankly Speaking Hurricanes Football with your host, Frank Masdeu. Well, I want to welcome everybody to Frankly Speaking Canes Football. I'm here with my brother, Robert Powell. We're excited because, as you can see, the hurricane season has just started. The warning signs are up. We're getting ready for Alabama. So I wanted Robert to come on board, and we wanted to get some final thoughts into this game preparation and what we're going to see. And today what we're going to discuss is the game stats, comparables in 2020 between Alabama and the University of Miami, and some of the concerns. One in particular that popped into my mind that I had recently heard that was kind of stunning. Robert and I knew, but we just didn't know how big a gap it was. So with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and ask Robert to introduce himself. Robert Powell, be a Cane. There you go, my brother. Robert.
Yes.
How are you doing?
Hey, man, I'm doing fantastic. We're like, let me see, less than 48 hours away, is it? It's about, less than 48 hours away. It is an exciting time, Cane fans, college football fans, right? Let's give props to all the folks out there that's going to be cheering on their teams, all the fans, but it's been a long time coming. We didn't particularly like the way our season ended, so it made for an extremely long off season for us. So we're excited. Frankie, I'm excited to be here with you. I know that we have games that we'll be attending and spending time at, and with family and friends. So we're looking forward to that. But hey, it's here now. There's no turning back. There's no turning back.
No, for better or for worse, it's here now.
For better or for worse, my friend.
That's right. And to Robert's point, we're going to be attending some games together. We're going to make a couple attempts at doing some Facebook Live at the stadium, because it's going to be very exciting. But we're here. I mean, it seems like the time went by fast, but while it was going by, it seemed like it took forever. We're here, and now we're kind of like, are we ready? So let's talk a little bit about it. I'm going to go ahead and share.
I'm trying to feel good about this year, right? So I'm telling myself that they have had this time together. They've had a full season. They had a full off season, so on and so forth. So hopefully we won't see such a lopsided first quarter.
I agree with you. And I think, to be honest with you, that those first quarters were skewed because of North Carolina and because of Clemson, because those two games really skewed the numbers. We really performed poorly in both those games. In the other games, even with Oklahoma State, we were coming back. We lost the RT and we almost came back. But in those two games, it was really skewed. But I wanted to share with you these numbers, Miami versus the opponents on offense, the scoring, first downs, and see if there's anything there that stands out to you. By the way, cheers to the new season.
Excellent. Well, you know my story on what's happening. I can't partake right now. After tomorrow, I'll be able to.
After tomorrow, hopefully we'll be able to celebrate tomorrow.
Yeah. And we'll leave it like that.
That's sure it.
The audience doesn't want to hear the gory details.
No, we don't.
No. Okay, let me see. Yards lost kind of jumps out at me. When they say yards lost, is that due to penalties and everything?
That's and sacks. In other words, we lost 319 yards. Our opponents lost 414. So we had a positive field position of 100 yards. So we actually did well. They actually had more losses. And again, when you're talking with those two bad games, still we did well on field position.
Yeah, no, that's true. And no, nothing really jumps out at me except for the low scoring.
Yes,
the low scoring. Although we held our opponents to like 27 points or so, right? Mm-hmm. If I'm looking at the very top.
Remember, again, I to give the silver lining, we held our opponents to 27 points, and that's including 66 to North Carolina and 45 or 50 to Clemson or whatever it was. I don't even remember the Clemson score, but those were the two. So that skews the number. If it had been, it's there. It is what it is. They don't lie. Numbers don't lie, but that's what it is. Now let's look over at the defense.
It was good to see our penalties
was
less than those than our opponents. So that shows discipline, growth, show a level of maturity with the team. Total of plays, wow, those are exactly the same.
No, not only that, look at the attempts, completions, and interceptions. Ours are 3-8. The attempts were exactly the same. The completions were almost the same, the yardage, and then the touchdowns. And then the average per attempt, we were a little higher, and we were a little higher in the average per game, higher on the touchdowns and the total yards. That's pretty interesting.
That speaks to game prep, Lashley, and of course King. So that stat is the blanket that covers both of them, right? Because and it speaks to the offensive line. I mean, I hate not giving the big boys their props. So that's not shabby. I mean,
that's a huge. By the way, you and I would agree that's a massive improvement over 2019.
Yep.
And this is during a COVID year, so it breeds a lot of optimism going forward. And on kickoff and kick returns, and punt returns, we're just thrilled with that. I don't even think we need to go over that because it was fantastic. But to your point on penalties, we averaged 70 yards per game. The opponents was 68. That was also a big improvement. But here's the third down conversions: 65 to 62. Fourth down, we converted 13 of 19. Opponents 10 of 18. That's pretty good. Fumbles, we had 14 and lost 6. Our opponents had 16 and lost 9. Sacks, wow, the sacks were right at about the same number. Look at that. I wouldn't have thought that.
No.
I don't know what miscellaneous yards is.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't.
They can't find a category, or they just say, wait a minute, we got to make these numbers work, so let's just put another down here.
Okay, and let's go to the individual stats on Cameron Harris.
Yeah.
So yards per attempt 5.1. So he was the high yards per attempt. Cheney came in at 4.7, so he was right behind him with fewer attempts. But that shows us, and we lost Brevin Jordan, but that's just on the rushing side. Okay, let's see on the other side here. Let's see individual stats. Passing, we've got that with King. Receiving, here we go. On the receiving side, games played, number. Yep. So that gives us a little bit of a flavor. I think by now I'm going to transition over to the PDF. I want to see that. There we go. Here's your scores for their games for 2020. Missouri, 38-18. They whipped on Texas A&M. They did a number on the former coach of FSU playing at Texas A&M.
Now, pay attention now. We were talking about, their biggest scores that they scored against were SEC teams.
Yeah.
They beat Kentucky 63-3.
Yes. They beat Ole Miss 63-48.
So then when you get into these averages,
dude, they beat Florida. They beat Florida 57-40. No, 52-46. To your point, Florida put 46 points on them last year.
And
wow.
Yeah. And that's averaging almost 12 points a quarter.
Yep.
Right? Yep. So then, as I said, if you're going to be in the game, you're going to have to put up 12 to 14 points a quarter.
Oh, yeah.
14 points a quarter would have beat them. Right? That would have been 56. Now, I agree with you that I do not believe they're going to put up that many points because of the newness of their offense. Only if we have a total breakdown, like North Carolina game. All right, that quarterback should not light us up.
Nope.
All right, he should not. That's why we play the game. We'll see. But
I'll be honest with you, I'm not worried about him lining us up. I don't think he's going to. My concern is their running game.
Is the running game.
Oh man, that's my concern. I think if they're forced to throw the ball, I think we've got the DBs. My concern is their running backs and their tight ends. I don't think they're going to beat us with their wide receivers. They could, but I'm thinking that it's the running backs and the tight ends and running the ball and those crossing routes over them and testing our linebackers. I think that's going to be the key. If we can't get him on the ground, and if he's just running the ball, they're having success running the ball, then we're going to have a real big issue. But I want you to notice that last stat with Ohio State. Ohio State was undefeated.
I know.
And they put 52 points on that defense. And Ohio State could only muster 20 with that high octane offense that Ohio State had last year. They could only muster 24 points. That is, again, it's an anomaly in this regard. Mac Jones had a phenomenal season, and he'd been there for a couple of years. But we'll see. We'll see if they can match it. Let's look at this other one here. Team statistics. Let's see. Scoring 630 points versus 252. Average points per game, Robert, 48.5 to 19.4. Points off of turnovers, 104 points.
Wow.
And the opponents had only 35. First downs, 365 to 259. Rushing, 132 yards per game. I mean, that was a balanced attack with 210 passing. Wow. The rushing yards were 2385.
Look at what was our number of penalties? What was our number of penalties?
We were 70 yards.
No, I'm talking about total number.
I don't remember the total number, but I do know we were at 70 yards average. What's their numbers of penalties? Only 23. Oh my God. Oh, that's ridiculous. That's
only
two
23.
penalties. That's 2 penalties per game.
That's it. So it goes back to something else that we were talking about. We have to start off fast, but we can't have those penalties because they will, regardless of how young they are, they're not going to make those kind of mistakes.
No.
They're not going to make those kind of mistakes.
Well, brother, you and I talked off air, and I want you to share that saying that we posted on that video about the X's and O's.
Yeah,
so speak to that. Sure.
Yeah, so some of you may have picked up our last video, and we named it, and it was based on something that I said. And I said it, a good friend would always say that when it gets down to it, it's not the X's and O's, it's the Jimmy and Joes. In other words, it's not the coaches calling the game ultimately. It gets down to the execution with the Jimmy and Joes or the guys on the field. Well, I said it in reverse by design because I believe that this game is not going to be the Jimmy and Joes, the guys on the field. I believe it will be the X's and O's, the cats that are calling the game. Frankie and I spent a good time talking about the experience of the coaches on the Alabama side, their tenure, right? The head coach's tenure, and then this NFL group of guys that they've brought in. How well we gel as a coaching staff will definitely be about the X's and O's. All right, because the Jimmy and Joes, I've stated this, I strongly believe at a talent level, we're there. We're just as good. And I know there's people out there that say you gotta be no. If you look from the top to bottom, I believe that you look at our defensive backfield, you look at our running back, you look at our quarterback, you look at the experience on the offensive line, you look at our defensive line. Now, granted, the linebackers, that's a little suspect, but top to bottom, talent-wise, it's not going to be about the Jimmy and Joes. Watch this game unfold. It's going to be the cats who is making the X's and O's, the coaches. So I kind of want to just put that out there because we had that conversation, and I don't have the permission to put my good friend's name out there, so I'm not going to put it out there. But he would always say, and he said, listen, Rob, it's not about the X's and O's, it's about the Jimmys and Joes. And he would say that all the time. And I flipped it because this game here, I believe, is going to be different. It will be about the strategic play calling and how they make their adjustments in this game. So,
Rob, I believe that that's the most prophetic statement about this game to date. I'm going to tell you why. This is the first game of the season. Alabama's coming in with 8 new faces on that offense. So they've got a very young offense, which normally any other team that was coming in to meet a team like Miami, who has returning, 80% or 90% of their production, 90% of their defense is coming back, it would be a big problem for them. But to your point with coaching, okay, these guys are so well coached and so well coached up that they're not likely to make a lot of mistakes. You're going to have to force a lot of mistakes, and you're going to have to run some schemes. You're going to have to outcoach them. And that's where the issue is. So I couldn't agree with you more, especially in this game. If we were talking a different opponent, it would be a different situation. You might be able to outperform them because of your athleticism, and you might be able to get away with some mistakes. But Miami's going to have to be as disciplined as Alabama. So that means they're going to have to be as well coached as Alabama to be able to give them a fight. So I agree with that. And then I want to share with you this and get your thoughts on this. Look at the red zone scoring, 93%.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay. And look at the red zone touchdowns, 78% to the opponent's 51% on touchdowns in the red zones. It's to your point, we cannot have any wasted possessions. They're going to have to gamble. They're going to have to, if there's any kind of a shot to make a 4th down, and they're going to have to gamble. I'm going to ask you this. I think, this is my personal opinion, that if you're moving the ball early, I don't care if it's the first quarter or second quarter, you're going to have to gamble on 4th down if you're in their territory.
Yes.
And because you have to make every possession count, even in the first quarter. Robert, you agree with that?
I totally agree. It's about taking advantage. We spoke in the previous discussion that if we get down there and you're 3-4 yards out from a touchdown and you're going into the 4th down, you gotta go for a touchdown. Oh, we gotta go for 3 points. No, that's what the manual says. All right, I got that. That's what the manual says. That's the safe bet. We gonna have to play aggressive. We have to go get it. Because we'll get them. We'll come next time. We'll score 7. It may not be a next time. So what good is the 3 points? What good is the 3 points if you don't get the ball again? Now, don't get me wrong. If it's a minute left and you get down there and 3 will win, okay, I got you.
Mm-hmm.
It's 32-31, a minute left. A field goal put you up to 34. I think I'll go for it there.
You got to.
As far as the field goal, but in the game, no. I guess.
Well, here's the thing, though. Here's the only thing that would hamper you on a decision like that. If your defense is not playing a good game, and you're at the Alabama 40-yard line or 38-yard line or 35, or well, no, not 35, but let's say 40, 42-yard line, and your defense is giving it up, and it's a 4th and 2 or 4th and 3, and you're going to give them good field position, that changes the entire dynamic of the game. So I go back to my biggest concern is our defense. If they're not able to take advantage and have a clear upper hand on Alabama's offense, then it's going to be a long day, because if they're running the ball, it's going to be a very long day. It really is. So to your point earlier, they're going to have to stop that run job one and make Bryce Young throw the ball or run the ball out of that position, because if not, you're not going to have the availability of making those decisions on fourth down, because field position becomes even more critical. It becomes a real problem, because Alabama, they run a spread, but they don't run 80 plays, 90 plays a game. They're typically going to methodically take it down the field, get their points, and they could crunch up the minutes in that game and give your offense very few opportunities because of the clock to get out there and match them. So we've got to be very careful with that. And they're large. That's a very big physical team. We've got some speed and athleticism. They do too, at the right spots. They're physical bruisers. So I think, to your point, we've got to take advantage and make those calls on fourth down. We can't let there be separation in the first quarter. We cannot go from the first quarter to the second quarter with a 14-point deficit or a 10-point deficit. I agree with you. You'd mentioned that before. If it gets to 7, you've got to start gambling. If it gets 7 or 10 points behind, you've got to start making some tough choices.
So let me come at you from that perspective, right? From, we just said, well, if our defense isn't playing well enough, then we shouldn't take those chances. We probably should just punt the ball off. I still say that if your defense is not playing well, then the burden is on you even more to put points on the board, right? So you're faced with that 4th and 2. Now, granted, I'm not talking about deep in your own territory. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about where the conventional playbook would say punt it, right? And I'm saying second guess that. If your defense is not playing well and you need points, the only way you're getting points, because if you're not playing well on defense, it means your defense is not scoring. You're going to have to generate some points. So you're going to need all the downs you can get. 4th and 1, playbook says punt it. I'm saying defense not playing well. Don't trust them. I'm going for it. I got to keep the ball. I got to score, right? So I play that side of the coin, because if you punt it off and they get the ball, I know some people ain't going to like this, but they're going to grind not only you out and score, they're going to grind the clock out. So now you're limiting the number of touches, versus if you don't get the 4th and 1, bad news is they get the ball. Bad news is they might score. The good news is they might do it quick, and you get the ball back, and let's see what you can do. Now, that's not conventional thinking. However, I said it in our very first podcast, this is not a time to go by the book under those conventional decision-making points of the game.
Correct.
So I see both sides. I respect what you said, and I got that, but I'm still on my dime of play aggressive, go for it on those 4th and 1s, where normally, other than being deep in your own territory, you wouldn't.
No, to your point, if you're starting to fall behind, your only choice is going to be, you can't be conservative on that, because if your defense is leaking like a sieve, you're just going to keep falling further and further behind.
Falling further behind. Clock is no longer your friend. They now know that you can't stop them, so they grind it out.
No, I agree with you. I stand corrected on that, because a big part of this is the big the mojo. If you start to lose the momentum because it starts to fade and slip away from you, and you start to lose the momentum, it's really difficult to get it back. You're not going to come back against a team like this. They're too well coached and too well disciplined. They're not going to make the mistakes that another team with a big lead might make. I couldn't agree with you more. Let's get your final thoughts on the coaching perspective. We didn't talk a whole lot about special teams, Robert. So I wanted to talk to you about special teams, and I wanted to talk to you about also the up-tempo offense that Lashley is going to run. And I wanted you also to focus on a couple things we didn't talk a lot about: Will Mallory and Arroyo and the tight ends. Uh, if that defense became stout and we were getting pressure on De'Ara King, would you go to a double tight end set with a larger back in the backfield, like a Chaney or a Harris, and just go with a double tight end set and try and hold off the rush? Or would you spread them out some more? How would you deal with that?
So when you go with a double tight end, what do you think that the defense is expecting? If you go with double tight end,
they're expecting the run. That's why I'd pass out of it.
Yeah.
In other words, I'd turn those two tight ends into passers. The pass catchers.
So to answer your question is yes, I would go and have them guess, what am I doing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. It's not trickery. It's a chess move. Okay. I'm showing a two tight end. I'm showing a double tight end set, right? Are they running or are they throwing? Right. Because the last time they did it, they threw.
Right.
The last two times they ran. So you have to cause them to think about what you're doing and not do what the conventional way of playing this game is about or how it's done. So yes, to your question, I would definitely do that. As far as coaching, we talked about that. You had another question. What was the other one?
Special teams.
Yeah.
Okay. Because here's the question. I want to frame it this way so you give it some thought. We're gonna get some opportunities in the red zone. Here's my concern. Going to your whole philosophy of whether we're conservative or we're aggressive. We cannot exchange field goals. We can't go down. So my feeling on special teams is I don't want to see more than one field goal in the game. I want to see touchdowns scored, and that's going to be the key. And also on, you had mentioned it to me too. We haven't had a dynamic kick returner or punt returner in a while. Somebody who can really take the top off and take it all the way back. Now with Estrepo, the X-Man, and with Harley, and I think Stevenson has some pretty good speed as well, or some moves. I think we might be able to do something there, but I wanted to get your thoughts on that too.
Okay, so I think that the primary role that our special team should focus on in this game is field position, right? If we have to punt, flip the field, right? Flip the field. If we're kicking off, good thing because we scored, right? Field position, you gotta stop them deep in their territory. Force the young cat to have to drive the field. All right. So I think it's about field position. That's number one. Number two, which could easily be number one, don't turn it over.
Yes. We didn't talk about that. That's huge.
Don't turn it over on a punt or a kickoff.
Oh, yeah.
Don't do it.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's a good chance if you turn it over, it's going to be deep in our territory. You're sitting there waiting for it. Boom, bounce out of your hand.
Now, another question to that point. Do you consider a fake punt? Do you consider, onside kicks? Obviously, that's a consideration. But with time and circumstance, would you consider a fake punt, or would you rather just line up the offense and go for it? In other words, because there's two different vantage points for that. There's two different paradigms. You could because of the trickery, either the fake punt, maybe you see something you like. Being that Alabama is a very disciplined team, but their special teams might be young because they're moving a lot of these new guys on offense. So what are your thoughts on that? Or do you just line it up and say, we're going for it?
No, I say everything goes.
Everything goes.
Right? Everything goes. Fake punt, onside kicks, it all goes. And I say you do it when circumstances look like you're not going to do it. Right? I mean, the game is all about trickery. It's all about confusion. It's all about keeping your opponent off balance. It's all about not knowing what you're going to do. Why do we whisper plays? Why do we send in plays under disguise? Because we don't want you to know what we're going to do. Right?
Correct.
So yes, I mean, under that umbrella of mystery, yes. Yes.
Absolutely.
I mean, line up, boom, they will never expect for us to do it on the very first punt of the game. I'm just using that as an example.
Right.
Do it.
I hear you. I hear you.
Listen,
How do you think the fans are going to affect the game? Remember, we're coming from 2020 when there was 10,000 fans in a stadium or 8,000. How do you think that's because it's a home game? It's a home game for Alabama. Let's be real. That's a home field for Alabama.
Yeah.
So our guys are going to be in there, and it's going to be, there's going to be 100,000, 80,000 fans, whatever it is. It's going to be a packed house. So what are your thoughts on that with hand signaling it in? And the dreaded last question, and I want you to think about those two questions. The dreaded last question is, if De'Aaron gets nicked up, heaven forbid, but if he gets nicked up and he's out for a couple plays, who do you roll into there? Do you roll in Tyler Van Dyke or do you roll in Jake?
Tyler Van Dyke.
Makes sense to me.
He's been in the program longer. He's had more time at that level to observe, to take in. I would just put it on the side of his exposure and tenure. Not to say that until he gets in and do something, we just don't know. The sparkle always goes to the new diamond in the case, right? And that's Garcia.
Jake. Yeah.
So, let's not talk about that anymore.
No, I'm just saying it because they have to be. You have to plan it, because he could get just out for a play or two, get winded, whatever the situation is, and you need to have that. And I feel comfortable for the first time in probably 10 years that we have someone that we could roll out there. Yeah. Maybe not against Alabama, but we have somebody that we could roll out there that would keep us in the game. That we'd have at least a puncher's chance. Right. Because in the past it's been that's the end of it. So that being said,
let me go back to your other question about the crowd, right?
Yeah.
You're asking about the crowd.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to have an impact, but I think it's going to have an impact on the freshmen and the redshirt freshmen or the second-year freshmen. Purely from the observation of they've been playing for 2 years almost, their last year of high school, and last year with nobody in the stands, right? When COVID originally kicked out, and that was an impact. And then last year, right? So some of them probably haven't seen fans in big numbers in a couple of years, right? This would be the first time they're going into a stadium. Fortunately for us, we have cats that have been around for more than 2 years. The majority of our team has been around for 3 to 4 years. So the bigger question is how it's going to impact those players who haven't played in front of those big crowds before. Bryce Young has not played in front of a big crowd like that.
No, he hasn't. No.
Neither
of those three big offensive linemen that are going to be lining up in front of him.
Yes, and it's going to be loud. Granted, Canes, we travel the best we can. I've been to many games, national championship games. I've been to the ACC, the only ACC championship game that we went to. And we may not travel in big numbers, but we can make a lot of noise. And that noise of 25, 30,000 folks, if that's going to be the number, is loud. Particularly if you haven't heard it in a while.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think that it is going to initially have an impact, but more so on the younger players who haven't experienced it yet.
And then I'm gonna give you my last question. And here's I want you to think about this for a minute. On offense, impact player of the game for the Hurricanes, impact player of the game potentially for Alabama. On defense, impact player for the Hurricanes, and then impact player for Alabama, for the Crimson Tide, potentially.
Okay. Offense, that's a toss-up. That's easy. Impact player is going to be King. I think that he's going to be the impact player. I don't think there's going to be a question mark there. I think that he's going to do what he do. He played in a lot of good games and done some good things. On defense, I believe our impact player, I think it's going to be the striker. I think Carter is going to have a big game. I think Carter's going to have a big game. Alabama offense, their running back. I think that running back Robinson is going to have a big game, and I think he's going to have a big game. It's just it's going to be a big enough game to beat us, right? I think he's going to have a big game. On defense, I would say one of those defensive ends.
You're right.
Alabama.
Anderson is the guy that they're. Yeah, I agree with you. I'm going to agree with you on the offensive side of the ball for the Canes. It all starts with King, and it ends with King.
Yep.
On the defensive side, I'm going to take a slightly different look. I'm thinking that Corey Flagg, the middle linebacker, has got to have, because he's going to be calling the plays, one heck of a game on the defensive side of the ball. For Alabama, conversely, I think it's going to have to be either the linebacker we were just talking about, the defensive end, or I'm going to switch that up. I'm going to go with Battle, the safety. They've got a veteran in that backfield, Battle, and if he's going to be challenged with the receivers, and he's got to hold that unit together, and Jode, the corner. So I'm going to go with Battle on that. And then I'm going to go with Bryce Young on the offensive side. I agree with the running back, but just because if Bryce Young gets rattled,
he can have an impact on a game.
That's going to have a big impact on the game.
You're absolutely right.
I want to thank you, my brother. It's always so much fun to spend time talking Canes with you and enjoy my time a great deal. And I want to make sure that we ask everybody who's been watching to hit the like button, subscribe, share the channel. We've got a couple more videos coming up on game day, on Saturday and on Friday. Look for us. Please share it on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, wherever you can share it. We appreciate that. On Rumble, share it everywhere. And God bless you. And Robert, we'll talk tomorrow. God bless you. Thank you for taking time to be with us. Go Canes.
Go Canes. All right, Frankie.